And one of the things that you just got right away was, you're constantly in gratitude, right? And that you saw that I was the same.
Yeah.
And so that leads us to how we co created, because I say this all the time, even though it's my website,
It's yours. It's so
my
crazy.
name's on it, my picture's my baby. How we created the chapters of the Goddess Collective program, which builds on each one like a beautiful, I would say, garden
Yes.
with rocks and trees and soil, and how to water that, and how I grew my Facebook group on Facebook. It went from like 50 people to 200 people. I have now 200 people in
Mhm.
less than a year, and those 200 people are all really um, basically vetted through me, because I didn't just want anybody to be in this container, because I wanted everyone to really raise that vibration and have it not be about them, to be about the whole and what we can do to create more joy, light, love,
Yes.
and harmony. So, not to create any suffering. So, we started
Suffering
with
is
the
all.
chapters, and gratitude is your number one, I would say, value system for you.
Yes, it is.
So, share with the audience like how gratitude works for you.
All right. So gratitude for me is my number one tool. It started out very basic and very simple. Um, uh, any of you who know my story knows it's not easy. Um, and the only thing that got me through that was to be grateful for the things that were working for me. The small things, like itty bitty things, like, oh, I have food in my belly right now. I have food in my belly. I'm grateful for that. And to be a child doing this, I had no idea what I was doing. I was just doing what my blueprints knew to do. And then as I grew older and into my 20s and things started changing and I'm meeting new people and having different experiences, it was a wild ride in my 20s, just like traveling the world and everything like that. It carried over and it started to become noticed by other people. I was a model at the time. So that industry isn't necessarily the most spiritual of places to be working around in, but people were still coming like, what is your thing? How are you getting all of this? What is happening here? You just popped onto the scene all of a sudden. I'm just like, well, I don't know. And I just started like spewing my truth, and it always came back to gratitude every time. So I'm like, this is a theme for me, isn't it? Think it is. I think that it is. And then as I grew into it even more, having gratitude for my gratitude practice, that just exploded things for me. And then it became to the point where now, for I would say the past 7 or 8 years, gratitude is my currency. I don't have to worry about my bank account if I know that I am
Mhm.
creating enough of that gratitude spiral, that Mobius loop of gratitude. I have overabundance of gratitude, and there's an overabundance of gratitude coming my way. And it's like when we have our sessions, we're like, no, thank you, no, thank you, no, stop it, thank you, no, thank you. The more of that that's happening, the more we have, the more abundant we're going to be in everything. And the way you are in one part of your life is the way you are in the rest of your life. We are multidimensional people, but our 3D
Mhm.
reality is very basic. And it's basically based on our gratitude, our level of gratitude. And once you have that foundation, if your foundation is gratitude rather than money or love, romance or a clean house and, all of that, then everything else can come together on that foundation. And gratitude is something that you control. You control that. You don't control the economy. You don't control the politics. We're in the midst of phase 9.5 of a pandemic. We have no control over any of this, but you have control over your gratitude. You can literally sit there and say, I choose to be grateful. And if you have that foundation of control, self-control for yourself, then everything else will just kind of come back into place. Your options, your opportunities, your availabilities, your wisdom, it's all going to be settled on this, something that you completely control. And this is where you can come back and be like, okay, so what else can I be grateful for? You did my intensive last March, I think it was. And day 2 was, let's just sit at our resources and be grateful for them. This is a program you did 10 years ago. Is it a book that you haven't picked up again in a little while, but you still get triggers, you know? What a person that you spoke to on the airplane. I always do that. I always find some random new friend on an airplane and I go back to these things and I'm like, I'm grateful for that. And now if I'm really truly grateful for it, I'm going to do something with it or for it or about it. You have your options now. So find something that you're grateful for, anything. It could be the weather. What are you going to do with it? Go outside. It could be a friend that you met 10 years ago, haven't spoken to, but they still really affect your psyche. What are you going to do with it, for it, about it? Maybe send them a note or just be grateful. Just be grateful. Okay, I'll be up in a minute. Sorry, the boys are here. But be grateful. That one exercise right there, and then it expands from there. You'll actually find that you are rewiring your neural pathways. This isn't just spirituality. This is science. This is how the brain works. There's Abraham Hicks, the 17-second rule, right? Think about something that you're grateful for 17 seconds. And then follow the breadcrumbs. And I know you've heard that training that I've done, Michelle. Follow the breadcrumbs. What's that next thought? And that next thought, because you'll find that the vibrations of every single thought after that are going to keep going up and up and up. And the next thing you know, by the end of the day, what just happened? That's amazing. You're going to find that it becomes easier. And this is where things like meditation, people who have a hard time with meditation, start small like this. Just think for 17 seconds about something that you love. Whether, for me, I love cheese. If I'm having a really bad day, give me my cheese, and I'll just like nibble on a piece of cheese for 17 seconds. The next thing I know, I'm getting intuitive hits. I'm getting ideas. I'm thinking, oh, I need to write that down. Oh my gosh, my sticky notes. You should see my sticky notes when I go through this process for myself. They're just everywhere because I am now allowing myself to be part of the blueprint, to be part of my higher self, who knows it all, who has it all, who came here for a reason. That reason was not to suffer. That reason was not to sit here with imposter syndrome. The reason was to make change. I am here to help people who help people so that we can shift everybody as fast as possible. So I want everybody who's listening to really sit with that idea, make it a practice. Yeah, you know, gratitude journals and affirmations and all of that, they can be helpful. But if you're not even in a place where you can sit for 17 seconds and be grateful, those affirmations are actually going to work against you because you're trying to convince yourself of something. Don't try to convince yourself of anything. Try to find your truth, one small little piece of truth, and just let that snowball effect come into effect for you. And as Michelle can attest, like I did this for her and didn't tell her I was doing this. I was just doing it and everything exploded. Everything that she has right now is based on her gratitude for who she is and her honest recognition of how powerful she is. And that rewiring took, well, I would say maybe 2 weeks, maybe if that, if that. It happened very quickly.
Yeah. Yes. And then when the pandemic hit, there was this immediate like, take a deep breath. Let's see the silver lining because, you know, the fact remains it is what it is. So let's figure out what we're going to birth during that time. And we ended up doing that together, many things. And one of the amazing things that you birthed was your flow cards, your flow state cards. And I can't wait for you to actually, if you want, to share your screen because I know you're going to put this on YouTube.
Oh, I am going to. Yes.
So let's show them your flow state beautiful, beautiful deck that
Yeah.
you birthed, and you helped me birth mine. And let's start with your flow, because your flow got me to birth my being becoming.
All right, so I have it up here as an example for everyone, just an explainer. The flow code is pretty much the extended version of what I just shared with you and how to get into that, starting with gratitude. So gratitude is definitely one of these. But this deck is it's an inspiration deck. It's not necessarily an oracle deck. It's me as the oracle, I guess. I don't know. Um, but those of you who've heard my story, you know where these came from. Those of you who haven't, raise your hand. I'll get that to you. But it was a long and trying journey for me to come to my own flow. It took me years and years and years, and that's where my superpower came from. I'm a master assimilator. I was able to do this since I was very, very young. I'm in my preteens, even able to assimilate things and like kind of see the big picture and zoom it all in and be like, oh, that's what that is. So I was able to do that, and I am a very avid journaler. I keep notes. Everybody knows I love my spreadsheets. So what happened was, through my journey from abandonment and just really not nice childhood, all the way through to where I am now, I learned many powerful things, and they're singular things. It's not huge, massive themes where you need to break them all down and go all crazy. No, I like to keep things very simple, very graceful, very elegant. So there's singular things, one word at a time. So there are 55 of them. Things like gratitude, things like intention, momentum, these sorts of things I now put into a deck in different categories, of course, because that's just how I do that. Oh, Michelle's got it here for us already. So this is the digital version of the flow code. This is the single card pull that I give to everybody for free. Just, what do I do today? Or I have this thing, or this particular card pull is mostly for your business, because like I was saying before, the way we are in one part of our life is the way we are going to be in the rest of our life. And my code isn't just for business. That just happens to be how I use it in my coaching. But these are all personal things, like tenants even for me, which I know that I need to keep them all on balance. So this first card here, she pulled the wisdom card. And this is an earth card, which means this is where we're going to want to come into the idea of wisdom based on, what do I already have? What am I already grounded in that I need to say yes to? Like I was saying again earlier, that step of saying, I have these things. What are the things that I'm already grateful for? What do I already have? What is my wisdom? What part of my wisdom have I not gone to for a little while? What part of my wisdom have I been maybe a little too shy to share? What part of my wisdom, or even my abilities, is it that I can really sit back in and get comfy? I know this. I've got this. All I need to do is use it, and everything's going to be okay. It's going to be fine. How can I sit down and do based on what I've already got? This card is one of my absolute favorites. I actually put it in the deck twice. And I was
I
like,
know it's my favorite too, because I took your wisdom energetic flow code and literally did my own, as you would say, simulation
yeah,
of what I believe as a goddess, what we can accomplish. And it's all about going within. Having that wisdom does not happen instantaneously. You
yeah,
need to go within, you need to contemplate, you need to have deep reflection, because if you don't do that, what happens is you get into the imposter
yeah,
syndrome problem, and the ego starts to tell you, because the ego's trying to protect you. It's that fear.
yeah. And one of the biggest things that I like to share with people about wisdom, that I've shared many times with you, is the practice of it. Because one of the things that prevents us from even acknowledging our wisdom is the not using of it. And that comes with conditioning. Those of us who have an understanding of cultural or familiar conditioning understand that we have and hold and house ideals of who and how we are or should be or how the world works, even based on what somebody else gave us. They're not necessarily our truth. We just haven't created room for our truth. So we need to get their truths out of the way, whether it's a well-meaning family member or your parents or culture in general or your first crush who dumped you, whatever it might be. You've allowed those conditionings, which is natural. That's part of the human conditioning, right? But what we want to do is notice how we've allowed ourselves to go through the similar cycles over and over and over. Have we had every single boyfriend do the same thing? And we're like, well, that's just how guys are. That's conditioning. Have we, do we have money block issues? We have issues with finances, and maybe it comes from the way that we were raised and the way that our parents managed or talked about money. That's all conditioning. And if you remove that conditioning, then the sky's the limit. The sky's no, not actually, no, not all men are like that. Or you know what? No, money is not bad. I love money. That's great. We can remove these conditionings. It's only when you change your thought patterns around it that you become wise. You can become conditioned or you can become wise. And so the stronger you come in the process that I've shared with Michelle and everybody here today, and Michelle is very good at this now, is you can do things twice now. You can have the experience, be like, oh, that's a cycle of mine. I learned that, and now I know that I'm just following my conditioning, and I'm choosing to not do that again. So you acknowledge it. You learn that it's a conditioning. You acknowledge it. That's actually not a truth that works for me anymore. So I'm done with it. And then you're going to go through the process one more time, and this is the time where you actually practice your wisdom. And that's super important. Myself personally, I've done this with so many conditions. I've been conditioned, those of you again who know my story, I was conditioned to think that I was ugly, that I was stupid, that I would never amount to anything. I was conditioned to just fall for pretty much anybody or thing who just like gave me attention. I'm a narcissist magnet. It's outrageous. So I learned that about myself. And I was like, you know what? I don't like that. You know what? I like the way that I look. I'm fine. I'm fine. Not ugly. I'm not fat. I'm definitely not stupid. So I had to learn that. And I went through that process with a narcissist for 7 years. And I learned through my process of getting out of that situation that that's what happened. I actually wrote the script for that. I allowed for it to happen based on my conditioning. My fault. I own the power to now change that. So then what I did was, again, the universe sent me one last narcissist to see what I would do, I guess. And I practiced my wisdom. It was a very short-lived little blip on the screen, and I was like, nope. Now I'm wise. Now I can see them coming a mile away, and that's beautiful. And people can do this for anything in their lives. Yes, mine is just a very vague, open example, but you can do this with anything from your eating habits to your finances to your home, the way that you clean, the way that you grocery shop, everything that you don't like about yourself, your reality, the way things are working for you, the way things are and are not flowing. Remove the conditions and become wise. And that's really powerful. I'm so glad you picked that card.